State Representative Russo, thanks so much for taking some time to meet with us. I know we're out here in the eastern side of Ohio in the Ohio Valley, but issue one is going to be on the ballot here in a couple of weeks, and it's something that affects every Ohioan. Can you just outline the importance of issue one and kind of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so what issue one does is it establishes a citizen-led commission made up of 15 members, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, 5 independents. And it allows that citizen-led commission to draw the district lines for our state legislative districts and congressional districts. So it removes the power from politicians who currently draw the lines and puts it in the hands of citizens. It is supported by a broad bipartisan coalition, Republicans, Democrats, independents, across multiple sectors, labor groups, for example, as well, because Ohio is one of the most gerrymandered states and continues to be in the entire country. And so what this does is, again, it takes the power away from politicians to draw their own lines.
And this comes on the heels of a couple of situations where redistricting has been an issue in Ohio. And we saw it last year and the year prior, time and time again, going back to redraw these maps. Is the hope that this might eliminate that and then maybe eliminate the need for special elections, which also happened because of a result of that?
Yeah, so as many of your viewers probably know, there were reforms passed in 2015 and 2018, overwhelmingly supported by citizens to reform how we did the redistricting process. Unfortunately, when those reforms took effect in 2021 and in 2022, because we were still drawing lines there, the reforms were ignored by many of the politicians who sat on the redistricting commission. And as a result, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled those maps unconstitutional 7 different times. And so the reforms did not work. And they primarily didn't work because the politicians who were in control of the commission had to give up their gerrymandered power for them to work. And they weren't able to do that. And it's why citizens were frankly outraged and went and collected over 700,000 signatures to put this on the ballot to change the process. So again, politicians are no longer part of this process. It's in the hands of citizens on a bipartisan, actually with independents as well, commission that has more transparency, more accountability to the public to do this so that our lines don't favor one party or another.
Now, according to the language with issue one, there would be an application process to get on that committee, but this would be open to any Ohioan. You could be working in education, you could be working in infrastructure and construction. You would have the ability to be on this rather than the politicians, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the commission will have the support also of independent map makers to help. So individual commission members won't be drawing the maps, but they will be evaluating the maps. They will be hearing from the public. And that's what's so great about this process is it really opens it up to everyday Ohioans to really, think about what's in the best interest of their own communities and communities across the state. So that you don't have the influence of both who is an incumbent politician who wants to hold on to their seat or what maybe is going to be some lines that can be manipulated to make sure that one party gets elected over the other. These are everyday citizens who can hear from the public, think about, again, we want to have elected representatives that are accountable to the people, not politicians who draw their own lines and pick their own voters.
And as far as issue one goes, you are urging a yes vote for it. You said it has bipartisan support. What are you hearing from the opposition, though, and what might you say to that?
So I am supportive of issue one. In fact, I've sponsored a resolution in the House to urge support of issue one. Unfortunately, the same politicians who have benefited from the current gerrymander. Again, we're one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. Are the essentially the campaign of no. So the no campaign is run entirely by politicians who want to be able to draw the maps to benefit themselves. And the yes campaign is being supported by, again, a broad coalition of individuals and groups really from across the political spectrum. Now, what is going to be confusing to voters is that the language that voters will see, the ballot description that you will see in the ballot box, unfortunately, has been drafted again by the same politicians who want to hold on to their gerrymandered power. And really manipulates and is confusing and distorts what the ballot, what the constitutional change will actually be. So voters, again, will have to go into the ballot box and know, do they want politicians to continue to draw these lines, which would be on the no side, or do they want to take that power back into their own hands and have citizens be part of this process, which would be the yes side.
Is there anything else on issue 1 that you would like to address?
Yeah.
I might be splitting hairs, but you guys talked about how this
Sorry,
opens up
David's catching me in the
to
background.
all Ohioans. It doesn't open up to all Ohioans. It
Yeah.
removes politicians and
Yeah,
lobbyists.
yeah, that's a good point. So Dylan, the only other thing that I would add to this is, you talked about that application process. Everyday Ohioans could apply to be part of this commission. What's important is who is excluded from this commission. And that is politicians cannot serve on the commission, nor can lobbyists serve on the commission. So those are the exclusions of who can be on the commission. So it really is supposed to be a commission that represents the people and communities in a broad spectrum of political views.
What else is going on right now in the Statehouse that people in Eastern Ohio might be interested in, whether it's something you're working on or maybe our local representatives are working on?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a slow time here in the legislature. Many of us are back in our districts. Of course, we've got an election that's coming up on November 5th, but we will be coming back after the election through the end of the year to work in the lame duck session. So you'll see a number of pieces of legislation likely getting across the finish line. They're wrapping up the business of the General Assembly. One of the things that I hope that we are working on is addressing the rising property taxes that we are all experiencing in our communities. I think whether you're Republican or Democrat, we are all hearing from our older residents, especially about the impact of rising property taxes and the inability to keep up with those property taxes and where they've been going. So we've got a number of bipartisan pieces of legislation here that provide direct relief to property owners. And I'm hopeful that we will get some movement on those, because what we are hearing from residents is that they really need that relief because the increases are making housing simply unaffordable or unattainable if you are a new home buyer.
When you say relief, I'm assuming financial, but could you kind of maybe peel back the onion there a little bit?
Yeah, so some of the legislation that has, again, has bipartisan support. Again, this could be direct relief in terms of an actual tax credit that comes back to property tax owners to help pay those property tax bills. It could also be a circuit breaker that we call, so you basically freeze at a certain rate. Expanding the homestead tax exemption, which is something we used to do really well in Ohio. And then we scaled that back for older residents. And it's something that we would like to see keep up with both inflation and the rising cost of those property taxes. So there are a number of different options there that we have to choose from. The most important, there really is not a one size fits all to fully address this issue. The important thing is we want to have a toolkit of relief that we can offer to property owners, because we know that many families and many of our communities are experiencing the strain of this cost.
And I do want to ask, and I mentioned it to David last week when we talked briefly, and I don't know what you may know on this or not. We have seen, and I'm sure it's seen in the larger cities, Cleveland and Columbus and Dayton, the homeless population in Steubenville, and this could go hand in hand with the housing crisis. The homeless population has seen a dramatic uptick in the last 6 to 12 months. Is there anything that the state offers to maybe help mitigate that?
Yeah, so I think the rising rates of homelessness that we're seeing, or housing insecurity that we're seeing in many of our communities, is the direct result of housing increases in housing costs. So particularly rent, which again can sometimes go back to the property tax issue. Also, we've got less direct relief that's coming from the federal government in terms of being able to pay or have more money to pay for things like groceries or prescription drugs, et cetera. So people are choosing between what they can and can't pay for. And sometimes they just simply cannot keep up with the rising housing costs. So there are a number of things that we need to be doing to address this housing insecurity issue. And by the way, it's not just simply an urban issue. We see it in many of our rural communities as well. I think addressing some of the property tax concerns, which do ultimately also impact renters because those costs get passed on to renters, but also making sure that communities have access to the capital they need to increase the housing stock in communities so that we can better meet the needs of the residents.
State Representative Russo, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate you shedding some light on issue one and some of these other topics.
Thank you so much, Dylan. It's great to talk with you.